How you doing today? So, I wanted to get really clear on some important things. And number one that was brought to my attention was when I was speaking about medications and how god-awful they are, some of the depression medications, anxiety medications, specifically talking about SSRIs or benzodiazepines. These are supremely harmful drugs, and they cause more harm than good. And I'll get into that a little bit more later on. But basically, one of the most important things I wanted to say was, when I was saying just straight up, don't take them, I want to get clear on something, that if you are already taking these drugs, it's important to have systems in place with better options so that you can begin to feel better, so that you no longer need the drugs, and that you can get off of them properly, safely, with the right support systems and networks in place, and have a better option. So what I'm going to do is share a little bit with you of some of the absolute most wonderful things that I used for me when I wanted to get better. Mentally, physically, everything. Basically, I wanted to have a family, and I did not want to pass on any of the negative effects of bipolar symptoms. And that's another thing let's get really clear on. Bipolar is just a man-made word to describe a grouping of symptoms. It is not a disease that you can catch from somewhere. It's not something that is so ingrained in your DNA that you will always have it and you will always pass it on from generation to generation. That's not a thing. I know they're trying to prove that, but it's bullshit. So, bipolar and like anxiety, depression, borderline personality disorder, these are all disorderly functions that can all be helped. So right now, I want to share with you some of the key components that I used for me when I wanted to, A, come off of lithium that I had been on for 16 years-ish. And I had tried other antidepressants when I was younger. They were awful. But basically, I wanted to, number one, no longer have any symptoms. Number two, I wanted to feel great. And number three, I wanted to be 100% drug-free for when I decided to get pregnant with my children and have my children, so that they could be happy and healthy and not have to deal with any of these kinds of things. So, one of the really amazing things I used was this. This is Skullcap tincture, aka Scutellaria lateriflora, because there are a few different skullcap herbs. So, note it, Scutellaria lateriflora is one of the most powerful sedatives and natural anxiety and stress relievers on planet Earth. This was put here for us to use. This beautiful, wonderful plant is one of the most amazing healers of the... Oh, maybe I shouldn't use that word. That was another thing brought to my attention. It is one of the most... Actually, there's no other way of saying it. It heals nervous tissue. It really does. And if I get in trouble for saying that, well, crud. But it actually goes to work with your nervous system. And whether you were dealing with physical trauma from an accident, like I was, or emotional problems, like I was, it works on both sides. It works on both ends, which makes it extra amazing. So often we get prescribed drugs for like a neurological issue, and then we end up with physical problems. Or we get prescribed drugs for physical problems, and we end up with neurological issues. This is so the opposite, because when you take this tincture and you just add it to water, or you can get the loose herb and make tea with it. Hell, you can even eat the loose tea, like the loose herb on its own. But I personally love the tea. I love the tincture. I've even made it topically and used it that way, and it is also fantastic. So I use this therapeutically every single day, probably 5, even 6, maybe 7 or 8, 9 times a day when I was dealing with extreme chronic pain and extreme anxiety. And it was a game changer. I found that when I was dealing with bipolar symptoms, that I was quick to anger. I had a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. My emotions would run really high. And it was really frustrating because it made it hard to make decisions. It made it hard to respond to people because you feel like that logic kind of goes right out the door. And especially if we're in like a heightened state of panic, like I experienced panic attacks at nighttime that were so severe that it would tense up my entire body and even my face to the point where I would just be in tears and kind of like distracting myself with the physical pain so that I wouldn't have to feel such emotional pain. But either way, it was just this pain cycle of ruminating thoughts and playing out scenarios and absolute panic, sheer terror, all these horrible things in a panic attack. This tincture helped me subside that and give myself some time to be able to slow my thoughts and begin to heal. What's up? You okay? You want to come up? Here we go. So having this tincture on hand was one of the greatest assets. And I can't stress enough how unbelievably important it was in the role of helping to slow down my thoughts, subside anxiety, subside stress, give myself more time to think, heal my nervous disorders. This was huge, and I used it every single day as needed throughout the day for weeks, months, even years. And as I used it, I needed less and less and less and less. In the beginning, it was a lot. And then it just started to taper off. Every now and then I would stop using it and see where I was at. I would assess my feelings. I'd go throughout the day and find if there was any weak points, any triggers, any physical responses I would get from stressful situations. And I would use it as needed. Now, I also used flower essences. So this is vibrational medicine. This is vibrational healing that is derived just from flowers. When I first began, I was using Dr. Terry Willard's flower essence blends, and I used those because Dr. Terry Willard was one of my teachers. He was my professor when I was studying holistic therapy. And so when I first came across flower essences, I thought, this sounds like a bunch of hokey pokey. That was my honest first thought. Like, how could this be something that powerful? And so when I started to try them out, like, I didn't understand at that point how they worked. It was just one of those kind of hippy dippy things like, ooh, flower power, how fun. And so as I read about all the different flowers and all the different emotional imbalances, or energetic imbalances would be a better way of saying it, when I read about all the different energetic imbalances in the human condition and how there's a flower for pretty much everything, and that was like, this is amazing, and they've been used for centuries. Like, this isn't something that just got discovered. Like, this is being used for a long time. This is pretty insane. It's pretty amazing. And so I got all the different blends that were being made of Dr. Terry Willard's flower essences, and I used them every single day, depending on what I was feeling. If I was feeling low, if I was feeling high, if I was feeling unfocused, if I was feeling detached, if I was feeling indifferent. Like, it's just everything, every emotion that didn't feel aligned with me in the moment. Like, I guess you could say every time I felt off. Because you know when you're going throughout your day and you feel aligned. Your emotions are aligned with what you're doing. Things make sense. You know? Like, your actions, your emotions, your energy. You know when those things are in alignment and it feels right. For somebody dealing with a severe mental disorder, we don't feel in alignment. That's the way I felt when I was dealing with that. I felt out of alignment so often. It can be really scary sometimes. It can be scary for you, and it can be scary for the people around you. I've been there. I know what it's like. So these were a huge asset in balancing those energies and putting things back into alignment. Now, these are pretty amazing. Like, you can use them for generational trauma. You can use them for things now. I used a different blend for helping me focus. Because here's a fun thing. And I think I might have talked about it before, maybe not. I had a really tough time reading and focusing. But the comprehension, the reading comprehension, I had always struggled with throughout my life, but it got really, really, really bad in my late teens and early 20s. And by the time I decided to go back to school for holistic therapy and iridology and all that fun jazz that I was really excited to do, I was not excited about all the reading that I was going to have to do. And there was a ton of it. So here's to put something into perspective. It took me, when I decided to read the first Harry Potter book, which is a children's book, and it's like not very thick, it took me an entire year to get through it, because I found myself reading and rereading line after line, paragraph after paragraph, trying to comprehend everything that I was reading. And it felt like the words would kind of shift around, and it was hard to not skip from one line to the next while in the middle of a sentence. That was difficult. So that's where my reading comprehension was at. It was not good. And so I'm trying to make it through my studies, and I'm going through my schooling, and some of the pages had diagrams and pictures, and there were some paragraphs, and there wasn't a lot of reading in some of the chapters. So for me to take an entire day's worth of reading that was only like 6 or 7 pages with just a couple paragraphs on each page was intense for me at that time. And you might be thinking, that's pretty sad, but that's the way it was. I had to read everything so slowly over and over and over for it to make sense and for it to sink in. And even then I would still have to go back and review. So to help with this, because focus is such a huge thing, oftentimes when I talk to people that are having issues with focus, like, how about you? Like, have you ever been told that you've got bipolar disorder? Oh, and then they tell you maybe you've got ADD, and then they say, well, maybe you've got borderline personality disorder. Like, they just keep going on and on and on and on, breaking these things down. But it's like, one of the biggest things that keeps coming up is focus issues with all of the mental disorders. And it's become a really hot topic right now with everybody. We just weren't, our environment never supported a very good focus environment. We never learned how to focus very well. Nobody teaches you how to focus. They just tell you to do it. So I used specific flower essences to help me focus. I also used, rosemary essential oil. When I learned about rosemary and its ability to help with memory, that I put in my diffuser, and I used that too. When I was writing my final exams, I microdosed a very specific type of mushrooms. Might have been capenses, but it helped with focus, and it helped with it helped with focus and energy. Because you don't want to take something that's going to make you heavy, sit on the couch and trip out or something like that. That is not the purpose of mushrooms when you're using it like this. So, so the Skullcap tincture, also in tea form, Scutellaria lateriflora, flower essences of very specific flowers. If you're interested in figuring out what flower essences might be great for you, I've got an entire flower essence mini course in my school community, Mind and Body Rebuild. I'll put the link in the description. Click on that. It's free to join, and it's if you want access to the flower essence course right away, just send me a message in the comments, and I'll grant you access right away. Otherwise, you can get there in level 3 in the school community. It's really easy and really fun. But just so everybody's clear, if you're already taking pharmaceutical drugs, it's important to have systems in place. It is important to have a plan of action, to have a professional by your side to help you come off of these drugs and start to get better. To have things in place that beforehand, even before coming off of these drugs. It's important to have a plan. If you're not feeling well and you're taking something that kind of helps a little bit, but it's not solving your problems, and you're not actually getting better, and you're probably going to be stuck on that drug for the rest of your life with all the added side effects, and probably a shortened life, because they did a study, and most people on these types of drugs end up losing approximately 15 years off their life. That was the study, as they determined that people taking anxiety and depression medication lost approximately 15, they died 15 years earlier than the average person not taking those drugs. So if that's you right now and you don't want to be that statistic, this may be, well, that was weird. This may be a better option for you. I think that was like a tree rubbing up against another tree. That was a really strange, cool sound. Ooh. It's really windy out here right now, but it's absolutely beautiful. And also, if you have been dealing with some undesirable symptoms mentally, emotionally, even physically, and maybe you don't want to go to your doctor about it because you're like, oh, they're just going to prescribe me something that has horrible side effects and I'm not interested in that, I'll just figure it out myself. And maybe you've been struggling or suffering with this for a really long time and you're kind of tired of it, shoot me a message. Let's talk about it. And also, join Mind and Body Rebuild. I'm in there every day, ready to help you. Yay. Oh yeah, and the other thing I was going to say about that whole taking me an entire year to read Harry Potter, the first one. Now, if you want to talk about now, I'm reading a book every single week. Every single week, I'm just destroying books, one after the next, after the next. I never thought I would get to this place where I could easily read and comprehend novels every single week. Like, this has been a gradual process, but through specific steps and specific instructions and specific learning methods, I've managed to go from being able to read 6 or 7 really simple pages in an entire day to reading multiple chapters just easily, just flows. It's amazing. You can do it too. I was always told I had too many problems, too many vision problems, too many focus problems. That's all baloney. You can learn cognitive ability. You can learn how to focus. Had I gone to my doctor and got tested for all the different acronyms that are out there, it would have been anxiety, depression, OCD, ADD, ADHD, you name it, it would have all been on there. With all like the music I had playing in my head, the repetitive thoughts, the repetitive words, the repetitive music, just one thing after the next mentally going on. It was an absolute roller coaster and a circus in my mind. So to now have mental clarity, focus, the ability to turn off the music in my head if I want to be able to have peace and quiet, to be able to read and actually comprehend, kind of a friggin' miracle. But it didn't just happen by accident. This was done with intention and with direction, and you can do it too. Absolutely.